It's that time, it's Thursday, and that means it's time for a take on the news from the left, right, and middle. And from the left, Arise News contributor Wallace Ford. He is a political blogger and professor at Medgar Evers College. And from the right is Horace Cooper. He is a legal commentator and fellow with the National Center for Policy. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So good to see both of you. Well, let's start, of course, with politics, and let's start with the presidential possible race. We can't seem to get enough of it, even though it's still a long way off. The election is still almost 2 years away. So now Mitt Romney has told a group that he is seriously considering a third run for the presidency. So here's my question, and I think I will start with you, Wallace. Is this good news for the Republicans or the Democrats?
Well, let's look at the facts with respect to this. Mitt Romney has been rejected he's a two-time loser. He's lost. First time he was rejected by his party. The second time he was rejected by the entire nation. Somehow, in Romney world, this seems like a good reason to run again. Having said that, he and Jeb Bush and Chris Christie, should he decide to get into this mix as well, will be drinking from the same fountain, if you will, of those, shall we say, moderate or less conservative Republicans and T-Publicans, and from that same money. And so in that regard, what you're going to have, I think, is the possibility of someone in the Huckabee range of the party coming forward as the party's nominee. Probably not the best thing for the Republican Party, but I tell you, Democrats right now, they're lighting candles in churches all over America and saying, please, Mitt Romney, will you please run? So we'll see what happens.
Horace, what do you think? Is this better for the Democrats or the Republicans if he runs?
Well, I'm going to surprise you, but I think a lot of Wallace's analysis is on point. The only upshot is the fact that we've got the Clinton retread that's likely to get the nomination for the Democrats. It means that whoever Republicans put up are going to have a decent shot, unless, of course, it's 3 times and you're out. Mr. Romney.
Well, Horace, let me ask you this about Romney. You know, it seemed to me, if my memory serves correct, that the Republican Party was sort of lukewarm about him the last go-round and even less so the first go-round. So it would seem that his first hill to climb is to actually engage his own party.
I don't think the party was lukewarm about him in 2012. I think the race was his to lose, and we've talked about this before. President Obama's re-elect in 2012 made him the first president in 100 years running for his first re-elect to lose votes among blacks, among women, among every group. This was a race that could have been won, but he didn't, and you have your chance. You take it, you don't make it, you need to move along and come up with something new.
But
I think Scott Walker is probably the kind of guy that people are going to get their hands around the party.
Yeah, Horace, I mean, you know, back in 2012, not to rehash history, but there was a big effort by some of the big Republican donors to get Chris Christie to run because they didn't want Mitt Romney to run. And you know, to your point, once he became the nominee, you know, one can argue whether it was his to lose. He obviously found a way to lose it, though. And yeah, so we'll see what happens in 2016. Well, but I really got to believe that to the extent that you see Christie and Bush and Romney in the game, that's going to favor a more conservative, right-leaning candidate, and I don't know that that's a natural success ticket. I beg your pardon, Scott Walker?
Here he comes.
Yeah,
but
well,
to your point,
that's a Democratic prayer.
You're doing a little bit of revisionism of history. The truth is, there were nearly a dozen candidates who ran in 2012, and there were a lot of people to choose from. Christie wasn't one of them. He wasn't one of the people being considered
But Horace, Michelle Bachmann, Herman Cain, Scott Perry, Rick Santorum, all Mitt Romney had to do at that point was say, I'm not them. Okay, I mean, the quality of the opposition we have to take into consideration here.
But and we can't forget about Mike Huckabee, who appears to be interested perhaps to run again this time. Horace, I want to just ask you a quick question, then let's move on to our next topic, and that is, do you think Mitt Romney is actually likely to run?
Well, a number of his supporters and people who were organized with him are saying that he wants them to do the kinds of things that made a run possible last time. At the end of the day, I do think that some of the donors who are people he would call upon are already lining up behind Jeb Bush or maybe even Chris Christie. So I think it's going to be a hard row to hoe for him to get in. And if I had to call it, I would say about 40-60, a 60% chance he's not going to run, a 40% chance he is.
Yeah, we got a long time to talk about this, and so much could happen. So let's turn the page, talk about our next topic, and that is Iran and the nuclear talks. John Kerry was just in Geneva for the beginning of the talks, and the several nations, the P5+1, I believe, are meeting on Sunday to talk about Iran's nuclear program. But right here in the United States, this Republican-run Congress now wants to strengthen, to increase the sanctions against Iran, which would derail, most certainly, the talks. Is this short-sighted, and is it careless of the Congress to entertain stronger sanctions when talks are progressing? Horace, I'll start with you.
I love the nature of the question here because it implies that we've never had a Congress interested in foreign policy. We've never had a Congress interested when Bush was president. We never had a Congress that was interested when Reagan was president.
Well, I'll quibble with you. I'm not implying that at all. I'm just talking about what's happening today. So let's address that.
So Congress always plays a role. And when you look at the fiasco of Iran policy that's happening, it won't surprise me that there will be a bipartisan move to ensure that sanctions do what the negotiations are not able to do, which is ensure that Iran does not move to a nuclear status. This is a failure on the White House's part in the Bush administration as well as the Obama administration, and it's about time that we act seriously in this regard, and I look forward to those.
Well, you know, we do have to keep in mind, Horace, that there's this old adage about the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and right now, with all the concerns that people might have with respect to Iran's nuclear capabilities, and we could spend another time talking about how much of a danger that really is, but the real danger in that area right now is ISIS. And Iran really has as many nickels in that dime as the United States in seeing that ISIS does not proliferate and does not become a permanent part of that in that region. And so, you know, to enter into a more bellicose and muscular position with respect to these nuclear talks at the same time when we have this much more pressing, much more immediate, shall we say, Charlie Hebdo, for example, and all the other terrorist issues that are going on around the world, whether it's ISIS-based or ISIS-inspired, that is the issue that you got to be dealing with that you have to be dealing with right now. And I think it is short-sighted and it is careless to suggest that now is the time to put the screws on Iran when there is when there's other fish to fry.
No, now is past the time. The truth of the matter is, just like the president fecklessly forgot to show up in Paris to join the whole
can we have time to talk about that? Can we have time to talk about that?
Let me finish.
Well, I guess
to join the rest of the world in condemning them.
But
he also failed.
Horace,
to be able to do what he needed to do with regard to Iran over the last 4 to 6 years, the same way President Bush didn't give the attention that should have been given to it. Absolutely, it's time for Congress to intervene.
All right, I know you're chomping to respond to the comment about his Obama fecklessly.
Well, I mean, keep in mind the fact that there was, the leaders of several European countries there, and the head of Israel and the Palestinian Authority. The president of the United States is the most high-value target on the planet for the people.
Please.
So,
Wallace,
so if
Wallace.
let me finish. No, if I could finish, please, Horace. If the president of the United States had gone, their Secret Service would have created a cordon of steel. It would no longer have been a demonstration. It would have been a solitary march. We can quibble about whether or not the president should have gone, but the president has done so much more.
The next time out. We're all out of time, guys.
Happy
Thank
New Year.
you so much.
Happy New Year,
Horace Cooper, Wallace Ford. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
That's going to do it for us tonight. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you tomorrow for another edition of Arise America. Bye-bye.